Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Covenant Cast. I'm your host, Zach.
And I'm Steven, and today, what do we got, Zach? We're covering, it's probably a little Destiny skewed, I would say.
There was maybe the least amount, but also biggest Destiny news we've had in a long time.
All right, like the release date. So we'll talk about that, of course. We've also got some previews coming up for the other FFG/LCG titles and more, so stay tuned.
All right, so this week we got a unusual announcement on the Fantasy Flight Games website. Actually, before we even...
What, a release date?
Yeah. But we got jokers here.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm really excited to talk about Destiny, and I'm excited about the change there. But before we do, last week's topic was about Netrunner. Obviously, that game has been announced that it's ending after Reign of Reverie, which is coming out very soon, at least
some places,
in some countries.
And in some quantities.
So we have some answers from last week. We asked basically for everyone listening to tell us about their favorite Netrunner memories, and we had some really good ones we wanted to cover. So we're going to hit that first. Going to talk a little bit about Destiny and then get into some questions.
And more coming for these Netrunner memories. They continue to stream in, which is just awesome. And it's kind of bittersweet to read them. Mutton Chop Piper says, growing up, my son was and still is an artist. He wasn't into sports or fishing or any traditional father-son activities, so we weren't as close as I wish we could have been. He is now an adult, and up to December of 2017, our relationship was still distant. We loved each other, but we had nothing that we both loved and could do together. During Christmas of 2017, I taught him how to play Android Netrunner, and he loved it. So now we get together twice a week and play, and our relationship is closer than it has ever been. That is what Netrunner means to me. It brought my son and I closer, which I will always be grateful.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Woo.
That's real. I mean, this is what we talk about when we talk about games.
Someone cutting onions in here?
That's right. But games really having some kind of special power to bring people together, even father and son, which is cool. And the cool part to me about, a lot of people, a lot of the responses are like, oh man, I just bought this game and now it's worthless and stuff. The cool part is that they could still play Netrunner every week forever.
Sure.
And I have old games that I still play that I bought a long time ago. So
that's so true, by the way. You're still getting those Star Wars CCG cards.
I know.
And every once in a while in the mail, it'd be like, what is this Emperor Palpatine?
Ron Longi and I brought our Star Wars TCG decks to one of the Destiny worlds and played it on the side. So, you never know how much legs you're going to get out of a game even once it's gone.
Well, let's move on to Joe Goddard. My favorite Netrunner memory was piling 4 nerds I barely knew into my little car, driving to my first tour championship in the next town, and taking second place with a janky combination of Wizard/Keyhole and MBN Psycho Beal decks. Sounds a lot like our actually early Szymanski days. Piling into that.
Yeah,
was
Bronco? Yeah.
Ooh, man. Eating like chips. I remember that so vividly.
I just remember convincing my mom every week to let me get in the car with Jason Szymanski.
Everything's fine. It should never have worked, and the guy that beat me for first was obviously 1,000 times better than me, but I had a little luck on my side, I guess. We all had a great time, and I got to meet some fantastic people along the way. It's funny how sometimes it's seemingly, in the grand scheme of, I guess you would say in quotations, competitive play, there are small victories that are so meaningful and that you remember so well. And it's really nice, even though it might just be a store championship, or even just the first time you did well at a local event, like Bryce recently, for the first time went 3-0 in a weekly Destiny tournament.
Yeah, well, on the same day, too.
Was smiling like a possum eating wasp, man.
Before, he was like, I might just go home. And I was like, nah, man, you should keep at it. And then he played and he won the tournament, and it was great. It was great to see that.
That single moment probably made our store $1,000 over the next 2 years, because he's in forever
That's
now,
to me, that's so funny. Well, and speaking of that, too, like some of my favorite memories from any game are road trips going to events. So I'm not surprised here that road trip and being at an event is one of the key memories.
Something about that road trip. And the good thing about games, it really gives you a reason to travel. Yeah. It really does.
To get out.
It does.
Yeah.
And a lot of people to come with you.
It's a crazy thing.
Finally, Billy Fallon. Let's share one from Billy. Netrunner was my first foray into LCGs and really card games for quite some time. I played the Lord of the Rings CCG for a while, but that was about it, which is a great game, by the way. The community in my area was amazing. I traveled around to different tournaments and went to our weekly league nights often. I religiously watched the Netrunner videos from Team Covenant, awesome Billy, and really tried to study how great players like Steven, that is a bit of an overstatement, made their choices to improve my own game. I actually didn't, so that's very nice, flattering. My favorite memory playing Netrunner occurred during my first store championship final. I was playing Leela against an NBN deck, and it was 5-4 in favor of the Corp. Okay, so Corp needs 2 points to win. That's the key thing here. And it's an NBN deck, so 2 points is like
candy
any moment.
Yeah.
On his turn, he goes install advance behind a single piece of ice. I didn't think I would be able to get into that server, so I went with the best chance I had, a 2-card medium dig on R&D. Isn't that beautiful? So I hit a Project Beal in that run, bounced the piece of ice with Leela's ability protecting the new install, and ran there, installed that agenda for the win, and my first ever store championship.
That's pretty
incredible.
intense.
And that speaks to how actually incredibly good the design of a lot of these runners were, that they had plays that only they were capable of making. And Leela, with his boxer mentality, goes and snipes an agenda, and that totally opens up now this new soft spot and can get in there. Just going from losing the game to winning the game in one punch. It's just so good.
That's a really leveraged ability.
Yeah.
Like when it goes well, it goes really well.
Really well.
Yeah.
I'll never forget what Netrunner meant to me in terms of my own gaming identity and the world it introduced me to. Well, I haven't played in quite some time, as I moved on to Destiny and X-Wing as my two main competitive games, and Arkham Horror taking up quite a lot of time as well, don't I know it? Netrunner will always have a special place in my heart. I think
Ain't that the
is
truth?
Echoed throughout the ages and our comment sections.
It's
I will
cool.
say.
It was really cool seeing all those comments pour in, and I think even the response to the announcement happening, you see the product online just disappear everywhere, and at local stores, I'm sure, as well. So people care about this game, and it means something special to them, and now that knowing it's going to go away, and I mean, that's the reality of basically any game I've ever played, is that at some point it goes away. So sad to see, but awesome to see how many incredible memories were made from that game.
That's right. And, another really quick kind of breadcrumb of information that Ben solidified for me this morning was that the original Netrunner universe was based on Cyberpunk 2020, right? This sci-fi setting. Well, Cyberpunk 2077 is the same setting, advanced, however many years that is. Yeah, you do the math.
7 years.
They did the math.
57 years. That's interesting, dude.
You should be able to do that quickly. It's
that
like,
makes
I'm not even going to try.
That makes those rumors.
Yeah, the swirl is real. But also, I have had a couple of people ask me if we'll be removing our Learning Netrunner series, and we won't be.
Take it down.
You can learn Netrunner for the rest of time, and please send anybody who's interested.
Yeah. So that said, speaking of rumors, one of the
oh no, what do we got? Rumors?
I'm segueing straight to Destiny.
Tell me.
So one of the common critiques of the handling of Destiny at this point is basically a lack of clarity on release dates and what's going on with the game. Early on, the FFG talked about doing 3 sets a year, and kind of loosely talked about it, and then never really said anything about it again. But on, I don't even know what today is, Wednesday, I guess. So yes, it was 2 days ago, maybe.
Today is Friday, Tuesday. If you're listening.
If you're listening, it's Friday.
Happy Friday, everybody.
You did it. You've almost made it. So Tuesday, they posted an article on their website by Andrew Navarro, who's the head of the studio.
Right.
And it was really short. It wasn't anything too crazy, except for the fact that Way of the Force is coming July 5th, which is not next week, the week after, 2 weeks. Dates are bad right now in my brain.
It was a tight release or announcement to release time period, though, I will say that.
Yes,
which is becoming not even that it's becoming the standard. It doesn't seem like A&A can escape that standard for whatever reason. It's always so tight, a consistent quandary for me.
This set was delayed, which we knew,
right?
Apparently it was supposed to come out in like May-ish, and so something obviously happened there, and I imagine the tightness is related to they're just getting this out as fast as they can. Because they don't want to wait.
It seems to be common that happens.
Well, that's a different problem. Anyways, but in the article, it's basically saying that, hey, we know it's delayed. This sucks. We've done everything we can to get it out as fast as we can. More importantly, though, that the next set is not being delayed because of this, and that was a lot of rumors going around where it's like, man, when's the next set actually going to come out? And reasserting the idea that they're committed to bringing a new 3 sets every year. Yeah. Which is their trilogy cycle, right? So a new cycle every year is the pacing, and then even referencing the fact that set 7 is the next base set, and he's very excited about what they're bringing to the table in that set.
Good.
And set 10, the next base set.
That's so critical.
He is convinced is going to just blow people's brains. See, that's at least me reading between the lines.
That's critical.
So the cool part of that, for the first time ever in Destiny, right, is in terms of rumors, right? There's so much that it's like when you don't know, you don't know. So you just have to speculate, and the internet goes wild.
Right.
Like
is
the
there even going
does.
to be a next set?
Yeah, and so the idea that they're working on at least through set 10 at this point. Set 10's a base set, so I would presume set 11 and 12 tied along with that is just really solid information. And then the expectation that obviously stuff happens and the universe can't be controlled, but if all goes according to plan, that we would get set 5 and 6 this year, 7, 8, 9 next year, 10, 11, 12 the next year.
Yeah.
So we're looking all the way through 2020.
It's very helpful to know that the head of FFG is focused on set 10 and beyond.
Yeah.
That removes, I think, a lot of the speculation that it's a touch and go, see how every set sells, and then decide to print or not. I think they're pretty well committed at this point to at least the next year to 2 years of the game, which is to me, that's very reassuring.
Yeah.
I need to hear that kind of information.
It's super helpful for retailers, for players, for everyone in the industry, but also thinking about it from a player perspective, right? It's like I've had people come in and it's like they're new and it's like, what should I buy? Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, technically, if set 6 is actually not coming out till like later, if it's also getting delayed, and then that means set 7, the next base set's also delayed, then it's like, well, you should probably go ahead and buy some of the older stuff.
Yeah.
But if we're really looking at set 6 by the end of the year, set 7 early next year, it's a different recommendation, right? So everything changes, and just having that clarification and solidification, and even just knowing that like the aim, right, is that they get 3 sets out a year. That's what they want to do, and crap may or may not go wrong. But just understanding that, where it's not like, oh, they just delayed it by 2 months because they wanted to, is super helpful.
Yeah, very good. So yeah, props on that. I will say here are 2 things alongside that at least on our end, we're always interested in constant improvement. So in the spirit of constant improvement, whenever I saw that article, I was so excited because I thought we were getting a set 6 release date. I thought they'd finally crack the code. You know what I mean? It's like we've been working every time. It's like we've been working. We're working on this issue. And then it's like quarter 4, 2018. It's like, better than nothing. I wish we could have just put a line in the sand and said, November here, December here. Quarter 4 is a lot of months.
October 22nd or whatever.
So do I need to plan on this for Christmas time, for friends? Do I need to, that would be really helpful. But then also on the transparency front, it always is like, basically whenever the delay happened, it would have been really nice to have said or heard in any capacity, hey, there's been a delay. Here's what it means. We have corrected the problem in this case. It's going to take this long until the set gets here approximately. So like, hey, we're really sorry about this. We had no intention of doing this, rather than allowing all of the speculation to continue. So it's like a last second correction and then the set's out.
But I hope like when they're talking about set 7 and 10 in it, and even saying that the goal is 3 sets a year, right? I hope
it's progress.
That this is a start of a trend where like ideally, right, if this announcement had come in April, it's like, hey, something went wrong. We're not going to have the set in May. It's going to take a couple extra months. We're still planning on getting set 6 out by the end of the year. Our goal is 3 sets a year.
Right.
That would have been great.
Wouldn't that have been great?
Yeah.
And I
guess
for my own part, I don't know why it doesn't happen. I'm sure there are reasons in and out. I don't know that they're correct reasons, but there are certainly reasons.
It's interesting about this to me, especially in building a business, is that like a lot of times problems don't become evident until you're experiencing them.
Right.
Where it's like, if you think about whether it's Asmodee or FFG and the kind of games they're making, it's like, I imagine Destiny being a collectible game, and on the scale it requires to make a collectible game, is presenting new and unique problems where you just haven't run into it. And I'm not saying that you can't prevent the mistake at all.
Well,
0%.
It's more like you might not be able to prevent it, but like communication is an age-old endeavor. I mean, this is not a new thing that it's like, oh, we could, communicate with the audience and let them know what's going on. Like that seems like something that's reasonable to do, but we got to take positive improvement when we can get it.
That's
and
right.
I think this article was the best thing that we've seen in terms of the long plan for Destiny.
Yeah, and we also, on the Destiny front, right, we've, in the past week and a half, 2 weeks, seen a bizarre amount of spoilers starting to pop up. Basically, every podcast and fan site is posting 2 or 3 spoilers. I have them all saved on my phone, but there's like, I don't know, probably 50 or 60
There's
of the
a
cards
lot coming
so
out
far.
all of a sudden.
Yeah, and I mean, the set's close, so we'll start seeing all that soon, but I'm super pumped. There's a lot of...
What's your favorite thing so far? So my favorite thing is the Executioner and the Executioner's Axe.
Okay, why is that
Which is
your
just
favorite?
super cool because Zach, you know me at this point. If you guys listen and haven't realized this by now, Zach and I know each other extremely well, I would hope, especially when it comes to games.
Yeah.
And this is a non-unique, special Stormtrooper, essentially. called Executioner. So you can have many of them. Nameless, faceless, no real big association in the movies or otherwise.
An 8-point red character.
But just really, really cool in its own way. Bringing a unique thing to the table, which is the Executioners. Whenever a character is defeated, one of your opponent's characters, you get to roll that die back into the pool, no matter where it is.
Seems good.
Same thing with the axe, the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It almost is the same die, too, if I remember correctly. It's just some melee symbols and some other nonsense, 1 and 2. And then you get to roll that back in. So you have that character with the axe. You kill a character, you roll in a couple of die that can do up to 4 more damage, if not more. And not only does it provide an archetype that can start to snipe off like really wide lists, like people going up to 4 characters are going to get wrecked. Like we presume that there might be some, multi-Jawa or multi-Gungan lists coming down the pipe at some point. And the Executioner list is there to like keep
literally
them in order.
them down. Well,
and then secondarily, it's fundamentals. I mean, that's going to be a good list.
A lot of lists have been including 3 characters lately, so that obviously gets really good. And he reminds me of like a subdued Balatik.
Yeah.
Because Balatik obviously got to ready anytime a character was defeated.
It's very different.
And you can run him elite, so there's 2 dice plus the upgrades. But the thing about Balatik is he was so good that he became the target.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas I feel like the Executioners, right? If you run 2 of those at 8 points.
I love these characters. You run 2 at 8, and I love them to be the same. Like that's my thing in Destiny. I want those 2 characters to be the same.
Well, that's what I really.
And then a big 14-pointer double die character.
I really dig that too. Right, like one of my favorite lists that I never actually play because it's not quite good enough is like Kylo with 2 stormtroopers or Anakin with 2 stormtroopers, where you kind of have like your main character with the guards, right, or the double Padawans. I like that as well. So Executioner's cool.
Opens it up. It's just a good 8-point character, really fun.
Solid. He'll be insane.
What about you?
In draft, by the way.
Is there something you really love?
So there's a lot that I'm really excited about, and there's different angles to it. But I think if I had to pick a thing, ironically, maybe, I don't know if it's ironic.
Like right on your wedding day, ironic?
Yeah. Oh, God. Let's not have that conversation on the podcast. Jonathan's smiling from downtown over there. You got him. So I would probably say the pod racing stuff.
Yeah.
There's the 2-point plot, the Bounty Eve, and the idea that like, so basically the plot is the first, or if you get a pod racer with 4 resources on it, there's ways to put resources on them. You get to cash those resources in, and your plot goes away. But it also removes that plot from anyone else running that plot.
Right.
So if your opponent and you are both doing the race, then you're technically you're racing to get to the point to get the things.
So cool.
And so just the theme of that, seeing little kid Anakin and Sebulba and their pod racers and kind of this whole new, this mini game in the game, and like the Star Wars CCG did pod racing back in the day, and it was awful because it was basically like if you're pod racing and your opponent's not, you win.
Yeah.
Period. It was like that good. Like the benefits were too strong. But this feels pretty cool, where it's like in general, if you're doing this, it's like most of the time you're going to have a way to get 4 resources randomly in a game.
Sure.
And that also opens up some of those weird cards that like you might not otherwise consider playing. But if you're racing, it's going to actually feel, and it's the kind of thing where it's like I'll probably get too focused on the race.
Yeah.
And then lose the actual game.
The thing that I like the most about it is you can literally, like in store, we could have the format that is everybody's got to run that plot.
Which is so funny.
You just have the
pod race.
Yeah, I love it.
And it's hero villain and that whole thing,
Open up that stuff.
So that's why I was talking with a couple of the locals about it, and it's like, we all have to build our pod racing decks.
Of course.
And like we're going to have the Bounty Eve tournament where it's like the winner is you get it.
100%. So Way of the Force releasing July 5th, which is also a bit weird because it's right around the holidays and shipping, etc. might be questionable. But we think it'll be fine. It's releasing on July 5th. And that means the last gasp of Legacies really is happening this weekend at our first Covenant Masters draft. And this is going to be an awesome tournament. We've been posting stuff on social media and on our newsletter and everywhere else about this thing. We've got a lot of people coming in for this weekend, and then we are going to have one in the Way of the Force meta as well, so we can start drafting Way of the Force. And that's going to happen pretty soon. After this first one, we'll announce that probably this weekend. So stay tuned if you want to know when that next Covenant Masters draft is.
And I'm planning to do some streaming on Facebook, the Team Covenant Facebook. I'll be streaming from the event, and we'll probably be announcing that event soon. So if it has been announced, we'll be talking about it on the stream and stuff. But super pumped to do Way of the Force drafts. Side note, we've been drafting a lot of Legacies here, getting ready for the event, and so I'm excited to get a whole new set. Constructed's going to be great. Trilogies is what I'm actually maybe most excited about.
Yeah.
Trilogies with 2 sets. And another note on the last gasp of Legacies is that if you wanted a Saga set, there's very few of those left. Probably on like Sunday or Monday is when those are going to be cut off.
Yeah.
So if you want to get one and have it shipped within a reasonable time frame, check those out and grab one of those.
2 of every card, 1 of every legendary.
I guess I should say what
Kind of how I say it, but it's not 2 of every card. It's 2 of every non-legendary card, 1 of every legendary.
I think I always say it as 1 of every legendary, 2 of everything else.
Yeah, that seems good. What are you, marketing? Speaking of last gasps, let's move right along to Netrunner. Netrunner has some interesting things happening with Reign of Reverie, really worth discussing in general, kind of added to the 2 steps forward, 1 step back pile. So it's confusing in that there's been massive allocations going on.
I saw someone posting that like Australia was getting none.
Australia's getting 0. We don't know how many. Canada was saying similar things, maybe like 100 copies. We know Amazon, I think, got cut off, which, I mean, if you're going to allocate anybody, at least do the one that you claim is against your brand philosophy, which is support the local
Amazon,
retail
or
store.
Is that like stores selling through Amazon?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't think Amazon is just like, maybe they are, but I don't know.
Maybe they are, yeah. Or it could be the marketplace. There's other retailers that are getting allocated. We're still, we've got subscribers. Everyone's been processed. We think we're fine. We haven't heard anything about allocation, but after the deep gate, it's like there's really no solid process for how this information gets to us in any kind of timely fashion. So it could be that we get boxes and they're short. So if you're a subscriber for Reign and Reverie, we think that everything's fine, but we're not.
I'm pretty confident that you're fine.
We're not, we're pretty confident, but you never know. So if we were more confident in basically the systems that got the information to us, we would tell you definitively. But as it is now, we're pretty sure that everything's cool. But on that front, you can't get it anywhere. You can't get Reign and Reverie anywhere. You can't get any Netrunner products anywhere.
And I wonder, like, I don't know. It seems like that a lot of people online are speculating, going back to speculation, when you don't know.
It's a strong game we play.
A lot of people are speculating that it was underprinted, but I have the feeling that, because we had to at least put in our final numbers before the announcement that the game was going away.
Yes.
And the response we've seen since then of people trying to get it
I think it's people banging at the gates. I mean, I think it's basically distributors and or retail stores had no interest in the product until they realized that it was a high demand thing because the announcement happened.
And then now they're trying to get it.
But by then the gate was closed. And so now they're trying to get numbers in at the last minute. And I mean, if they're not honored, and then that's kind of the way business works, right?
Yeah, but that's where it's like, if, as an example, Australia's getting 0, is it like, are they getting 0 because it was underprinted and they just didn't get sent any, or are they getting 0 because the distributor didn't put in for any?
Correct.
And then numbers get locked in. I mean, they had to print this thing weeks at least, or months ago. So I don't know.
Here's the other
but
take
I'd love
on
to
this.
know.
The other take on this is, and I've seen various kind of, following the Netrunner timeline over the past couple of weeks, that it got printed at all is kind of also potentially a out of nowhere kind of thing. Because there's a lot of now, and I think even Damon was commenting in a personal way, not as, of course,
Damon,
an
one
employee
of the previous developers,
or having any information as to how the situation actually transpired, but that it could well be that it was only through the persistence / passion of FFG as a studio to knowing that this, once they get the news about the announcement, it's like, we're not printing Reign and Reverie or anything, it's done, to be like, can we at least print some? And that may have happened, and so maybe a normal run would have been 100%, and now they're getting to print just through sheer force of will 20% or 30% to get something out there.
Well, I also saw that they're printing the World Champion decks from this past year, so it doesn't seem like there's a short print as much as demand has gone through the ceiling.
Yeah.
Where like a lot of old Netrunner players who haven't been actively buying or participating in the game know this is their only chance to get this product, and all of a sudden, and it's only a $30 box, right? So it's like, I'm going to get this, and you have
the final
triple
deluxe.
the number of people ordering it than you have had ordering the packs. And the other thing is, like, typically I assume with packs and stuff, you're not ordering to just barely make enough, right? It's like you want to print it and have it for 6 to 12 months kind of a thing. So with this one, knowing that it's expiring, they may have not printed that extra.
Yeah. Totally.
And then all of a sudden, a 20% spike in demand immediately means you're gone.
Yeah.
So
fingers crossed, eyes open.
Now, I will say other news that I'm excited about, and it's weird for me, is that Game of Thrones.
It's weird for you to be excited?
The LCG. So we picked up the Game of Thrones LCG back in 2011.
Yeah.
We opened our local store in 2012. And from 2012 until about 2015, when 2.0 came out.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. different story.
So X-Wing Netrunner came out, but even then, like we played a lot of Thrones. That was the card game, right?
Thrones, yes.
We played a ton of Thrones. We had a great community locally.
It was the community.
Yeah, I mean, we had like 20 or 30 people coming every week to play Thrones.
It was awesome.
It was the glory days. Unfortunately, for the current Thrones players that are still around, it's like you got used to that, where it's like you have 30 people. But anyways, they have been previewing in this latest cycle. So they put out a Danny, who's a burn Danny, which reduces strength and kills characters if they get to 0. And you know how I feel about burn.
Yeah.
Huge burn fan.
I like the easy stuff, you know?
Easy button. Ask Dennis. But they put out previews for this cycle, and like a week or two ago, they previewed a Rhaegal, one of the green dragon from Thrones, and it's the only dragons we have right now are kind of the hatchlings, the little baby dragons. And these are like the teenage dragons is what I call them.
Yeah, so they're they're getting their license, they're flying without parents' permission, that kind of thing.
Yeah, what that means really is like Danny, as an example, is 5 or 6 gold. These dragons are 5 or 6 gold, so they're a main character, right?
Okay, yeah.
They just previewed the Drogon, who is a fiend.
Is it the one where you win a challenge, -4 strength, kill if 0?
And it's a military at 6 strength.
I have such essentially PTSD from playing against those burn decks over the past 4 years. It kind of made me sick to my stomach.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. Really, for the first time. I mean, so I played 2.0 up front, and I really enjoyed it. And then there was this weird point, and I think this happened for a lot of people, where Lannister got really, really good.
Yeah.
And everything else was just kind of like easily tier 2.
It happened for Westeros, really.
Yeah, that's right. And then, well, we know how that goes. But then, I got distracted by X-Wing Destiny and kind of moved along. But this is the first time since 2.0 has been out, and I kind of left after that first year, that I'm re-interested. So who knows? With these dragons and the new Danny, I may well be lighting the fire.
There was a rumor that you were going to stream Thrones this week.
This week?
Or the week after. Maybe it was the week whenever the pack comes out, or is it a deluxe?
It's
Are they
packs.
building to a deluxe? Oh, it's packs.
We're still like
7 years from the Targ.
6 years later. No, the Targ Deluxe is 7 years away. I'm convinced. That's the last one they're going to do. But I think that's where they're going to put the big dragons, like the fully grown dragons.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So when these dragons are out is when I will probably play. I may play before that. I was looking through some cards. There's a local who wanted to play Stark, and I don't play Stark. So I was like, hey, I'll literally sell you this whole first 2 cycles in deluxe and core set of Stark stuff for $20.
Oh, wow.
And he was happy about that.
How can you not do that? Yeah.
But it was like, I'm not going to use these, and I would rather someone use these and be a part of the community. So he's getting in.
Well, I heard
that got me reinterested, though. I started looking through the cards, and I was like...
If you get reinterested, I'll get reinterested, because Greyjoy has got a lot of Drowned God stuff going on that is incredibly appealing to me. I don't know if the play style is, but the theme is super appealing. So
that's all you really need.
I'd be willing to give it a look.
Well, we might be taking a little adventure soon.
Adventures in Westeros?
Anything else for you this week?
Yeah, well, we'll get some Covenant news. May as well run that down, just some things to keep you guys out there a little bit more apprised of what's going on for us.
Like you made a list as we were going.
I have some list items. First, we are actually it's been in progress for a long time, but finishing up designs for a new website, which is really cool. As you know, Zach, you've seen some of them so far, but there's been some critical failings for many years on that website, and you just take it.
It's hard, man.
You take it one step at a time, right? You correct the biggest problems given the budget that you have, and then you continue to do that, and then eventually, hopefully, if you make the right choices, the budget gets bigger, and then you continue to move. So anyone who has been over on the website and been like, this is not good, or like these rows should be better, or this mobile experience
Classic
sucks.
example is that right now, if you go to our website and you want to find a learning series to learn how to play a game, and we've been putting a lot of energy and investment and time in these learning series. Right?
It ain't there.
Learning Netrunner, learning L5R, learning Destiny, etc. It's on the website, but it's very difficult to find.
Good luck.
It's just simple things like that, where the site was built when we weren't doing learning series, or we didn't offer certain things, or have this podcast. Good luck finding this podcast on the website.
Yeah,
it's not there.
And some not so simple things too. A lot of just technology, architecture. Things change so fast. So that's coming up quickly. Jonathan finishing up behind us. Things are looking really good over there. We've also got Dynasty rings. So those are still in production. We pre-ordered those a couple of months ago, and still looking good to hit the production date on that. We'll probably send an email this week or next about that one.
Because we have next week is the start of 6 packs 6 weeks. They're doing that again.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a just crazy amount of L5R
Yeah.
coming out.
And
all at
then
once.
the final thing too is we're still, man, it's so frustrating. And I actually have I'm just gonna vent. Can I vent a little bit?
I'm here for you, dude.
Can I vent? We're still trying.
I don't know where you're going with this.
Well,
but
we're
I
trying to
hope it's
chase
good.
down this deep gate novella thing because for those of you not familiar, there's this product. We have a subscription. We have a number of subscribers. Process works seamlessly. Right at this point, 99% of the time. This is really the only time that it's ever gone weird for us, which is that we have the novella come out, Deep Gate, and then kind of right at the last second, the finish line, it's like, oh, and by the way, you're getting 30% of what you ordered.
It's kind of after the finish line.
Yeah, which is, it's frustrating for a number of reasons, and apparently a lot of other people getting allocated there too. And the whole concept of allocation to me is still hard to wrap my mind around. For instance, we don't, you're a retail store, you don't take 100 orders for something and then make 20 and then say, oops, sorry, 80 customers.
Yeah, like the rings, right? If we were randomly like, actually, we only made half of these, so sorry.
So sorry. So we're still trying to track this down, and it's just time and time again, it's no information, have no idea what's going on, nothing's happening. And so it's literally like a daily pursuit of where is it? Are you going to reprint it? What's going on with it? We have obligations we need to fulfill, and we take that extremely seriously. At this point, I would say more seriously than a lot of people understand, even at the distribution level. It's like, why do you keep calling us?
I'll tell you why.
I'll tell you why, because we have an obligation to people. But the real thing that got me crazy, Zach, is that it went in stock on FFG's website.
That's enough to drive someone crazy.
It was out of stock. Listen, if you can believe this, it was out of stock after it was like, okay, fine. Everybody got their little allocation. And then it was out of stock, and everybody's out of stock because you can't find the thing. It went back in stock on their website. And I think that deserves an explanation. Like, that is offensive to me as, in the space that we're in as a retailer, that the product that you have restricted from everybody else, you're selling directly through your own outlet. It's just really bizarre.
Which, ultimately, right, we've talked about Kickstarter on the cast before, and so, like, Kickstarter, one of the main benefits is that it lets companies, particularly game manufacturers, sell directly to the consumer. And so the typical model, right, is manufacturer, distribution, retailer, customer. So cutting people out means you make more money. And so the reality is that when a publisher, right, it's like a lot of times the publishers that are doing Kickstarter aren't nearly as successful on the retail side of things.
Right.
For that very reason, right? One example I use all the time is Relic Knights, which is they Kickstarted like 2 years of releases, and then when it was coming out, they wanted retailers to be on board.
Right.
And it's like, well, the problem is I can't sell anything for this game for 24 months.
Because you already sold it.
Because you already sold it, and you made the profit off of it. So there's nothing wrong with the company making something and selling it to customers. We do that all the time.
Sure.
But when you have built an ecosystem on the fact that you have distributors and retailers who support everything you're doing, you make the game and they build the communities and sell the products and all that kind of stuff.
Which has been the pitch the whole time. It's like, we're here to support the retail store. We're here to support this ecosystem. What would games be without the local stores?
Yeah,
Yada,
and
yada.
you see this a lot on like the Fantasy Flight side. It'll be like order on our website now or at your local retailer, like available for pre-order kind of a thing. Because you definitely want people who want to buy it, maybe don't have a local retail store.
Sure.
Or there's people like us that can sell online or FFG, whatever. But when it comes to a product that you're telling the whole chain, right? Because as far as I'm aware, everyone got allocated.
Right.
There's not enough of, and then
you
magically have some.
It's not a good look.
It is suspect.
It's not a good look.
Totally suspect. So
it's really not a good look.
hopefully we get clarification on what's going on there. But it's the kind of thing too where like with the allocation on it, it was like you just kind of had to find out yourself what was going on. It wasn't even like a notice like, hey, we're sorry, there's allocation happening. We printed less, demand spiked, whatever. Sort of going back to the speculation thing where you just want to be informed on what's going on.
Yeah.
Same thing here where it's like you just happen to notice that you can order it from somewhere.
Right.
And you still can't order it from your normal chain. So
because I want Silas.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're really pumped about
my favorite
him.
investigator.
The Greyjoy vibe and that whole thing. I mean, it's the whole like sea, water.
I just want it to be a square deal, man. Like if you're gonna say you're supporting retailers, then send them the books.
Well.
Anyway, So there's all that. Also, there was a Y-wing spoiler that we didn't cover. Did you see that?
Yeah. So
for
the
X-Wing?
thing about X2, they did the Rebel conversion kit unboxing.
Oh, so you've seen it all.
Where they literally showed basically
Okay.
everything in the box.
Okay, good.
So I saw the Y-wing article, and it, it's nice, and there's talking about new stuff going on, but it was really no new information to me. So that's why it was like not even.
It looks good.
I clicked. I will say, if you haven't seen the picture, we have it on our Learning X-wing Everything You Need to Know blog, but it's got the first edition Y-wing next to the second edition Y-wing, and
Marked
it's obvious.
improvement.
Yeah, it's way better. So I'm pumped. It's just like I got excited. I have the information. I know what's going to happen, and now I'm just waiting.
Right.
That's kind of my.
It's a long wait now at this point.
But we have Destiny and another set, and hopefully another set after that.
That's right. We know we have up to 10 sets potentially.
Yeah, potentially maybe.
Or at least in development. So tell me, what about this past week? It's Father's Day. What'd you get into?
Man, I'm realizing how many people are in my immediate circle.
Yeah, too many.
I'm blessed in that way, and also cursed, I guess. The blessing and the cursing thing, because it's like this weekend I had another nephew birthday, and then just realizing how many nieces and nephews.
Birthdays for you, by the way. You guys have to understand, listening or watching. I mean, it seems like not a week goes by when it's not a nephew birthday.
I know.
A nephew or a niece, and it's like, Zach, what are you doing? It's like, well, I got this birthday thing. It's like, how many of them? 6?
6 nieces and nephews.
There can only be 6 birthdays then, right?
That's right.
Okay. Well, it seems like a lot more.
The next one is in October.
Oh, okay.
So
maybe we just hit a big
pocket.
section.
May, June was a lot of it. So, that Father's Day was fun. Again, more family stuff going on. But then I'm also continuing down the Westworld trail. And this whole season, if you watch the show, I would love to know if you feel this way or not. But it has been me oscillating between completely confused and thinking it's the best show of all time, episode to episode. And so last week, it was a beautiful episode about no character we've ever really interacted with, and it told a great story. And then this past week, a lot of dots were connected from the whole season, because we're going into the next week is the finale. But it's the wildest ride, because there's shows like True Detective where I just got hooked, understood what was going on the whole time, and just loved every moment.
Yeah.
But then this show, I've never had the pendulum swing so much while I'm in the same season. It's not even like a seasonal thing. It's literally like I get done with the episode and we're all just sitting there and I'm like, I don't know what I'm watching anymore. And then the next week happens like, okay, I get it. I got it.
Yeah, everything's cool.
Yeah,
everything's fine.
Cool. That's
well, I mean, can they go too far in that? Do you feel like you can actually appreciate the direction of the series?
I think they are barely balancing it. If it was if I went another episode and was still confused, I think I would be less interested in continuing.
Yeah.
But they go just far enough where it's like, here's things, you know what happened, but you don't know what happened.
Oh,
right? You know what I mean?
Get it, yeah.
It's like, I know that Teddy did this, but I don't know when this happened or why it matters or why you showed it to me, kind of thing.
Interesting.
So I think it's great, and it's a well-done show. But
I guess I'll jump in. I watched the first season. I've been waiting to hear the reviews, whether or not second season's worth it, because there's a lot of good television.
There's a lot of good content.
Speaking of, are you watching the new Queer Eyes?
I am not. However, I saw 10 minutes of it.
Yeah.
And it seemed great.
It's everything. Gosh, it's so good. It's like, I follow a lot of news, I would say. What is Twitter built for? Apparently the Infowars or whatever, people who like to consume written content specifically.
People like the news.
So I'll check news morning and night.
On Twitter?
Which is not a good habit. No, not on Twitter.
Oh, I was like, you always rail me for liking Twitter.
No, yeah. So I'll check news, and I'm very much locked into a national and global perspective that I think is questionable, I guess I would say. I feel a slant of negativity just in general in world affairs and national affairs. And a show like Queer Eye, believe it or not, is like everything that I want to balance that scale out.
It's just
entirely.
positivity.
It zooms things in past policy, big level policies, and into individual people interacting and doing well by each other and making positive changes. And it's super, it's just so meaningful.
That's awesome.
It's genuine and it's meaningful and it's great. So I would highly suggest it's on Netflix. There's now 2 seasons. I have seen some this weekend. We watch about one a night at this point.
That's
We're
awesome.
rolling through the second season.
That's really cool, because I feel like if you focus too much any one direction, especially if it leans negative or obviously the world stage right now has a lot of things going on that could be negative, that could shape your perspective and
it's
mentality.
just so big. All the problems now, like I feel like our problems, we're more aware of them than we ever have been because of the way information spreads.
And you realize how big they are.
And they're bigger than us.
And
They're so much bigger.
You feel like you can't do anything.
Yeah. And then it's just like
now you're
anxiety, just
negative.
permanent anxiety. Right?
Yeah, versus like you zoom in and you have a nice little...
And here's a beautiful subset of people
That's
doing
cool.
something nice for each
That's
other.
really awesome.
It's really nice. And then it was Father's Day, so my Father's Day gift was to, my dad is a big part of our tiny little, actually Presbyterian church in Chelsea. I think we had about 11 people there. And that's probably pretty standard attendance. But it means a lot to him to go there and particularly to participate in the music, because the piano player that's normally there was absent, couldn't make it. So he said, hey, it would mean a lot to me if you and your brother, Jonathan, who's on the cast sometimes, you guys recognize, would come in and play, because he plays banjo, I play mandolin, and
you guys did that at
Dad
church?
plays guitar,
Hot dog. Where was
played
my
all the
invite?
hymns
Next
and
time you
everything
guys are
else.
playing at church, I need an invite to this.
And I'll tell you, man, farther along, that is a song that I played a lot of in regardless of your kind of religious leanings, that is a song that I think has a tremendous amount of wisdom in it. So if you're ever in a tight spot, just kind of look up the lyrics of Farther Along.
Nice.
And I think it's just really inspiring. Also, my Shannon was gone Friday through Sunday, so I had the house to myself, aside from when I went to church. And she took Appa, her dog, our dog, I should say. It was her dog, and then we got married, so I guess it's our dog now.
Yeah, we all know the truth of this situation.
And it was like, man, it's so different. You don't realize how that doesn't happen very often as compared to how often that used to be the case, where it was just you sitting in a house or a room. And now it's like, man, this doesn't happen in like 6 months.
And for a certain amount of time, it's nice.
And it is nice.
Right?
Yeah.
A little reprieve.
Moments of niceness, yes.
I'll tell you what, having a dog is a lot of work.
Ain't that the truth?
Just putting that out there.
Yeah, Jonathan still refers to Bogey as the dog.
The dog.
I noticed that in the last podcast.
That's a unique situation.
Heartworms?
That's a travesty. Well, I hope he gets better.
Let's move on to question one.
All right, yeah. So if you're unaware, if you're first time listening, you can use the hashtag AskCovenant on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and we answer questions tagged with that hashtag right here on the show. So we have a slew of questions here from listeners just like you, and we love answering them. So if you want to hear us talk about something on the show, you can ask. We try to work through as many of the questions as we can, but time is limited. So ask the questions. We'd love to have them and happy to discuss them. First question here from Chris says, I've been watching your Destiny videos and wanted to dive into Destiny, although is now a good time. Is rotation coming soon? Hashtag Ask Covenant.
Yeah, I mean...
You answer it.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I think any time is a great time to dive into Destiny.
Just start
because
drafting.
I think it's great. My number one thing would be, like you said, 2-player starters first, character starters after that, then draft if it's there, like if you have people to draft with. If you're playing with a specific person, I would recommend leaning towards the newest cycle, so Legacy's Way of the Force. Not really worry about the first 3 as much. If there are very specific things you want from those sets, I would look up singles on like our website or some of the other sites, or eBay, trying to find some of the specifics, like if you want to play Darth Vader, or you want to play Baby Vader, or whoever.
Or Tusken Raider.
Or Tusken Raider. It rhymes with Vader. That's clever.
Vader, get it?
But yeah, I mean, I think it's a great time to dive in. Way of the Force is going to be really helpful because I think Legacies plus Way of the Force will allow you to build viable decks, even in the everything's legal format.
Absolutely.
Whereas Legacies only is a little bit more of a challenge. But I've actually, to challenge myself when I've been playing Constructed, been playing Trilogy's decks against Standard.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good thing to do.
It's pretty reasonable, and it's reasonable because a guy named Yoda exists.
Yeah,
but
no
no, even in my non-Yoda decks, I have like a starter Anakin from Rivals and Rey from this 2-player starter deck, and it's Hero, so it's the Shields Anakin.
Yeah.
Surprisingly good. I'll tell you what, you're dropping 4 shields a turn, it is hard for people to kill your characters.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But yeah, definitely, I would say always is a great time to jump into Destiny, and in general, buying whatever the latest set is, and then going from there.
And check out the buyer's guide, because what you just said, you run the whole thing down on the website. Just do a search, because as we said, it's very difficult to find.
Yeah, well, I'll try to
solve that problem.
Try to have it linked to in the description here. But if you search for Learning Destiny, there's a buyer's guide is one of those chapters, and it'll give you a full breakdown. We keep that updated, so if you're listening to this 5 years from now, hopefully that still works out for you, and it should give you some advice on how to jump in.
Shall we go on to Nerf Herder? Let me, Zach, perhaps I'm reading, I'll ask as if I'm Nerf Herder.
Right.
Zach, perhaps I'm
Are
reading
you
too
Nerf
much
Herder?
into this, but it really
Speculation.
appeared as though you had to walk Jeremy through several plays, like special chaining, impulsive, etc. Mind addressing? Great video, super well edited, makes it very easy to follow along. Thank you.
And this is I played a game against Jeremy when we were at Worlds a couple months ago, and we revealed some Way of the Force spoilers, but we were using some of the decks at the time that were good. And the truth is that two things. One is that going into it, Jeremy, obviously he's a lead developer, and so it was really funny. Beforehand, he was like, "I haven't played this character pair in a few months because they've been testing, as we found out, as far as set 10 at this point." So I was playing, I think, a Thrawn Talzin deck, that kind of a thing. And so definitely, like, there was part of it where it was like just openly asking, like, "Hey, this would be a good thing," and then he would actually just do the thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily me like telling him what to do as much as it was like he's literally playing decks and cards that he hasn't seen in months because he's been focused on the next thing. But yeah, I wouldn't say I was coaching. I think someone asked if I was coaching him when we were playing. It's like, no, he's good enough. I promise you.
You guys have played a lot in a non-filmed scenario, and no coaching was required.
Yeah, and the more interesting part of that interview to me was getting his take on the various design elements, and like less about like the current meta of the game and how it's functioning, and way more on like when you see this action chain happening, what are you thinking? Like, is this too much for the game? Are you concerned about this, or is this something you're going to keep doing in the future? So I thought that was I loved hearing from him in that video.
Let's move on to a question from David Vegel, one of our longtime contributors. Is Taylor Swift making the cut for the improved format? Just kidding.
Yes.
When live formats make an appearance, it reduces editing load and puts you out in front of more people because it's favored by algorithms. David knows what he's talking about when it comes to SEO business. I believe that is a part of his current job. I've actually met with him in Norman. Isn't that right, David? Norman? And we chatted for a while. It was really cool. So here's the thing. So let's unmask things a little bit. Let's be transparent. The way that all of our podcasts and videos go is almost always a single take. The podcast is always a single take. There's no editing time involved. We don't clip ums. We don't cut out sections, like that kind of stuff. So you get the raw deal, and then we take it, we add the intro music, we upload it, and it's done.
A lot of times we clip it up and post social clips on like Facebook or Twitter or whatever.
So there's not a lot of gain that we have by doing it live as opposed to doing it recorded. It's not like we spend a lot of time editing. But that also means that we could do it live, I think, with no issue. Like,
sure.
Live would be fun, and it'd be exciting, and it'd be
well,
fun.
And one of the upsides of live could be that we would actually have an audience to interact
Directly interact with.
And it potentially have questions that
That's correct.
get discussed or answered. And also right now, with the way we do it, right, we usually record on Wednesday, and it goes up on Friday. So there have been times where like big news drops on Thursday or Friday, and then it's like we're talking about speculation about that's been confirmed or denied.
And it's already happened.
Yeah.
So I mean, live formats, live streaming and just live things in general is still a bit of a Pandora's box, I think, ultimately for business consideration. How do you monetize it effectively? How do you make sure that it's content that you're investing time in that sticks around and that has a lasting impact? That's even something about these podcasts in particular, because we're doing a more kind of like in the moment podcast where we're talking about very specific current events rather than bigger topics that might be relevant 10 years down the line. So these questions are always there. And I mean, I think we probably will experiment with live recording. You started experimenting with live streaming.
I was going to say, I've been
weeklies.
Experimenting with live streaming on Wednesday nights. It's been Destiny so far, but obviously going to experiment with some other games as well.
Yeah.
Just to get a feel for it and how it's working and interacting with people and stuff. And so that's something we're definitely exploring. And I could see us either doing episodes live or the podcast live at some point.
Yeah.
But at this point, that's another element of live, right? Is that part of the value is that it is in the moment, and you can interact with the audience, and it's very live. The kind of thing for us, just how we work, right, is we always like to do things that stick around. We did learning Netrunner, and that will literally potentially be around forever.
In a hilarious example, ultimately. I mean, it will stick around forever.
Yeah, but it's like even if the game goes away, like it's still going to be there and actually might bring value to people who are looking to play this game. Like I would have loved to have had a series like that for the Star Wars CCG, after it was gone, because like that is a confusing game. Although it's great. So anyways, yeah, I mean, it's something we'll experiment with. I doubt that the weekly podcast becomes purely live, but
we're still so up in the air on it that it could be anything.
And honestly, like, things change. I remember before podcasting existed, before YouTube existed, live streaming is becoming more and more reasonable to do, and more people do it, enjoy it, and understand it. So who knows? 5 years from now, we might only be doing live content.
Whoa, yeah, there you go. Just have a camera in the office and go talking to it whenever you want.
We literally might just always be live.
There you go.
That'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, what could go wrong there? I think I've seen a Black Mirror episode about that. Question 5, Michael Santorowski, Team Covenant. In Arkham Horror, the living card game, also known as the card game, when is the right time to look at new cards? Before or after the adventure? Thanks. And so for me, like, looking at new cards in terms of adding them to your deck, I think it's a very, and I think that's what we're talking about here, right? It's very, the way that I like to approach Arkham Horror is we gather together, we pull our decks out that we left off last time, and we jump right into a scenario immediately. I like to get to the table and start playing and just move, go for it. And then after every scenario, you have a moment where you get to like decompress, kind of lean back in your chair and be like, okay, what was working for me that game? What wasn't? Did I think that this was valued correctly, but it was actually too slow? Or was this card really good that I didn't expect to be so good in this scenario? And then what are given the way that this theme is developing, does it look like I'm going to need maybe some more like combat related things? Because if I'm going down a quest where I'm slaying ghouls and then it's like you approach the Mother Ghoul's Den next scenario, you might think to yourself, well, I might need to get ready for like a conflict.
Sure.
And so you can start swapping cards in with your experience points and whatnot.
Is your normal habit that you do a scenario, right, and you gain your experience and whatnot, and then you immediately alter your deck with new stuff? And then that way, the next time you're saying that's what you do, jump in.
Absolutely. I think that's how it's designed in the book.
So it's not the case that like a scenario comes out and there are cards that you can add to your deck that are suited to that scenario at all?
No. Now you can house rule it all ways from Sunday. If for instance, like if I'm really excited about an investigator like Silas, for instance, I can get a hold of one. I would probably just switch investigators and decks midstream and just take the experience that I'd already gained with my previous character and go because I want to play in it.
Yeah.
But generally, the Arkham system is actually designed to discourage hot swapping constantly, because to swap any card takes one experience. So it's clear that they were trying to restrict the kind of flowy nature of a character that you're building, and to kind of get it constrained into a character that is truly kind of one of a kind or unique.
Feels like that character game to game.
So like the cards that you start with in your deck are telling you kind of where your character is going to go, because it's easier to upgrade something already in your deck than add a new card that you already have.
So even though a new card might be better, you might go with the other option.
So like if you start out with 2 of this card and you're like, I don't like that card, it's going to cost you 2 experience to get anything in its place.
Yeah.
So you have to relearn tricks. It's much harder than getting better at something you already knew when you started.
That's very awesome.
So it creates a sense of permanence.
Here's a random side question on that. How often do you lose the first time through a scenario?
I'd say if we're playing on normal, I'd say we probably lose like 30% of the time.
Cool. So you do in a scenario, you get owned by it, maybe you change out some cards, and then you go back and try again?
Yeah, and you can go back and try again. Or, in Arkham, most of the time it's move on to the next one, and it determines the path that you go down, right? So awesome. It's like, oh, you didn't save the prisoners, so mark that in your log and then go to the next one.
That game is fire.
It's like, dang it.
That game is real fire. I love that.
There are some that are just so frustrating because you're playing fundamentals and you think you're great and you've gathered 26 clues, and it's like, that when you cash the clues in, something bad happens. So you're like biding your time, and then something flips up that says like, discard all your clues, or like move to the next agenda unless you have 6 clues on the current one. It's just like all this weird stuff. So you never quite know, am I supposed to cash in now? Should I hold? It's very hard to guess what the scenario is going to ask. Yeah,
you just know when to.
You got to know when to hold them, fold them,
that kind of thing,
etc.
All right, next question here from Alan Jones. What are your thoughts on a restricted list so early into L5R, and what does it mean going forward?
Bring it on, man. Bring it on.
I was going to say, so
I'm kind of over the perfection element of these games.
It's
just
impossible.
Fix it. Yeah.
But that's where, like, I remember playing Thrones 1.0, and a restricted list was an integral part of the experience.
Yeah,
where
it's actually really fun.
Yeah, and like even like I kind of like if I'm looking at it from an L5R perspective, right? And they're going to do 2 6-pack 6 weeks a year. In the middle of that, we're getting a clan pack, right? So it seems very natural to me to do 6-pack 6 weeks, have like 6 weeks of time, introduce a restricted list, right? So you get a certain meta, figure things out, and then it changes without any products coming out. It changes.
Right.
Then 6 to I don't know, a couple months later, you get a clan pack, and then down the line you get another restricted list that gets updated,
Like
and changes
a consistent schedule that you can rely on to essentially kind of maintain your own excitement for a game.
Yeah, I mean, imagine. So where are we at right now? July is when we're getting this big 6-pack 6 weeks. So you have that, and then it's like September, you get a restricted list, early September. Late October, we get the clan pack. December, we're getting 6-pack 6 weeks. February, we're getting another restricted list. June, we're getting another 6-pack 6 weeks.
In.
And that way you just keep rolling. Because Thrones 1.0, that's how it felt. It was like you had packs constantly coming out, and then I remember like when the refugees hit that list, it was like literally everyone's deck had to change.
It was pandemonium. Yeah.
So I like it. I hope having tools like that built into a game up front, I think is really helpful.
And not being afraid to use them.
Instead of being scared of it. Because I think that was one of the things with Netrunner that was so bad, is that it took them so long to admit that the stuff they put in the core set was too good.
Yeah. Or even that, like, hey, let's just stop Faust right now. Just stop it. Ban it.
Immediately.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Don't need it. Can we finish this off just talking a couple of kind of cool things that we've been looking at? So we're getting ready to go to Gen
Talk
Con.
about whatever you want. Isn't that weird? I remember there was a time in my life when, what is this? It's like 7 weeks to Gen Con. I would have felt like that was forever.
Yeah.
And now I feel like that is 2 days.
Yeah, it's literally going to be right in front of us. And I think we're more inclined than ever to really, and we always do this, keep our eyes open and look at the various properties happening. And sometimes there's exciting things, sometimes there's some really questionable things, and nothing's really kicking. But it looks like this year's going to be pretty good, at least for expandable games, the kind of games that we generally are inclined towards. We've got to check out the Wizards. They've got the new Transformers collectible card game.
I feel like that either goes really right or very poor.
Absolutely.
I think the reason I feel that way too is back in the late 90s and the 2000s, there was like a new CCG every week.
Yeah.
Roughly. And there was a lot of like, oh, Buffy's popular, let's make it a CCG. Oh, Transformers popular, let's make it a CCG down the line. But, the thing about Wizards is that they do not put out new games very often.
That's true.
They have Magic, D&D.
They had a couple that have failed. And see, we're not as informed to the Wizards culture as we have, well, certainly in the past. We're more locked in than we have been right now. But they had, I was reading a couple of titles that they had released in the past 5 or so years that have failed. But even so, compared to a company like FFG, not even close.
Yeah,
they're putting out
Asmodee in general.
maybe one title a year. If you're even then, it's not even close.
That's true. They really honed in on Magic.
3 years, 2 years, 8 years.
But what's funny about the Transformers thing is I Googled it a couple weeks ago, and it's like apparently they also put out a Transformers CCG back in like 2002.
Really?
There was an announcement that was like Wizards is going to publish a Star Wars collectible game and Transformers collectible game.
Oh.
I don't think they're connected at all. So we'll see.
Wow. Well, early reports from what I have seen from the inside, if you will, on various Facebook posts, apparently very good game. Very, very good.
We'll see. There's also, I saw the Warhammer collectible card game.
I'm
Age of Sigmar,
interested,
right?
Man. Age of Sigmar Champions is what it's called, and it's the company Play Fusion. They do Lightseekers, which is one of those games that we've always seen around.
It's the same company as Lightseekers?
Yeah.
Really?
We've seen it around at Gen Con and then always been like, that seems weird, and never tried it. And we should try it.
Lightseekers, is that the augmented reality stuff?
Yeah.
That's
it's the same thing they're doing with Warhammer. But the reason I like it so much, and this might be the case with Lightseekers too, we were in a phase, I guess, a couple of years ago specifically, where we had a very small box as to what we thought we wanted and what we were looking for as gamers, and then consequently as business owners.
Yeah. And
I think those tastes have matured and opened up dramatically just being in the space and probably getting older.
Well, I think there's a lot of things happening. Even if you go back to like when we first opened the store, there is a legitimacy to like anything we were doing was happening across the board. Happened in the store, happened online, etc. And so like if we were going to be in the store and be demoing a game and be playing a game and be showing a game, it needed to be to your taste.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
And so, as we've evolved as an entity, as an organization really, and really locked into why we exist as a company and what we're trying to do, the reality, and I've learned it too, right? I was very much competitive leaning, wanted to focus on tournaments and all that. Total 180 at this point, right? Like the idea of a cooperative game was like crazy to me.
Oh, what are we playing?
I can't crush you. Then like, what is this for children? But that's really evolved, right? And like you're saying, on personal taste, but also just an understanding of the reality that there are a lot of different people with a lot of different preferences and tastes, and I don't have to like something for someone to be into.
Everyone
That's fine,
can play
right?
what they want to play.
Yeah, or like, if you like Last Jedi, you can.
Yeah,
and it's okay. Not to segue into that.
Bring it in, man.
Yeah, no, the truth is that like you can like what you like, and that's cool. And I don't know, like I'm getting more eclectic, I think, in my taste, where it's like I kind of just like all this sort of stuff.
I'm just interested, right? And here's the thing about so Warhammer, we really got our first taste with Conquest. We started to understand, and that's the 40K universe, of course, but that kind of got us in with the GW sphere a little bit and started to understand kind of that fan base and how that works and those kinds of things.
And that universe?
Yeah, that whole universe. And now seeing this Warhammer card game, this Age of Sigmar Champions, what I like about it is it's a trading card game, so you buy packs of cards, and from what I understand, you can play the full game physically forever. It requires no technology.
That's cool.
However, you can also scan those cards in using your phone or a tablet or whatever to this app I'm sure that they have. And it will not only give you those cards in the digital environment, but also change them for the digital version. I think it enhances certain cards. So much so that, and this is pure speculation on my end, it might be that like the 5th time I scan in the same card, my digital version of that card gets a little better. That's kind of how I was reading it.
That adds another element to the whole collecting thing.
But that would be smart, and so maybe I'm projecting my hopes and dreams onto 2 words of a press release.
Like when you get your 87th copy of Anticipate in Destiny as a common, it actually has some sort of value to you outside of just the physical nature, which is cool.
Wouldn't it be cool? I mean, if you're looking to really make a trading card game that's exciting, just like every card has value in that context. So once you get to 6,000 copies of this card, it turns into this. And it's like, oh my gosh.
First guy to 6,000 gets this crazy thing. Which, I mean, I think just on that note, right, I am the more I see it, and people always ask us, what do we think about playing online and et cetera, et cetera. I think that it's really important for especially an expandable game that wants to be successful, to probably incorporate both elements.
Yeah.
Where
it's the first time I've seen it. That looked really, really done.
The accessibility in learning and playing and starting a game online is so much higher. And then, you get 2 months in, and it's like, hey, there's actually people that play this with real cards. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So I'll be curious to see how all that shakes out. I still think technology hasn't been quite nailed in the space, but given this conversation, have a question I would love to end this
yeah, let's
with,
do it. Let's
add.
we're about time. Let's get out of here.
All right, so I would love to know, there's a lot of games out there, and there's a lot of games that are potentially going to be coming out. So if you're listening, watching, I would love to know, what game would you love to see us create a learning series for, and potentially even, maybe offer a subscription or make a token set, etc. For. If we aren't already aware of it, I would love to know what everyone watching and listening is into.
All right, well, that's good. Sounds good. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. We always appreciate your time. And until next time, keep playing.